Hey there guys, how are you? So I feel like I'm the last person on the internet to see this movie. Logan is the third standalone Wolverine movie. Does anyone remember that abomination against humanity? You probably don't want to remember it, because if you do, it'll give you nightmares. And some people like that movie, and that's okay, but I think it's a big bloated pile of shit, and it almost ruined the entire franchise of Wolverine. But we got this movie, so it makes up for it. And with that said, check out my awesome new Wolverine t-shirt. These are located at my TeePublic store. I'll put the link down below. I have like 9 new Wolverine t-shirts I picked up. It just felt necessary. And to be honest with you, I actually couldn't decide which Wolverine t-shirt to wear for this movie review. Watch this old clip from 2013 where I kill X-Men Origins Wolverine, and I'm gonna go switch my t-shirt. I'll be right back. I think I like this one a little bit more. Alright, so Logan is directed by James Mangold, who also directed the second Wolverine movie titled The Wolverine. And as far as that movie goes, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's slightly entertaining, but it's just a very forgettable movie in the Wolverine franchise. Because by the third act, the Silver Samurai turns into a Decepticon and shit, and you're just like, what's happening? Now let's talk about the movie Logan. This film is based on the Old Man Logan comics, and it takes place in the near future where everything in this universe has went downhill. And by the way, just on a quick nerdy side note, why can't they just give Wolverine his suit for one movie? They almost did it in the last movie. Almost. And it's like, I get it, you can't have Hugh Jackman running around in yellow spandex. But in this movie Logan, Wolverine is old, he's grizzled, he's beaten down, he's tired. He doesn't want to do this anymore because now when he gets shot or stabbed, he doesn't heal instantaneously. He's more vulnerable. He can't really take a beating like he used to. I mean, he still has adamantium claws that can heal eventually, but there's a larger sense of danger there when he's in these situations, and it puts you on the edge of your seat a little bit more. So yeah, let me get this out of the way before we continue on. If I was writing the script for this movie, I would have made part of the script or maybe a plot point to where, since he's healing slower, maybe he does have to get a suit of armor somehow, some way to go into the final climax of the movie, and that suit of armor might look something like this. I don't know. I just give Wolverine a yellow spandex. I want it. All right, let's get back to the plot of the movie. But by the way, if you guys agree with me, let me know down below in the comments section. And as far as the overall vibe of this movie goes, it has a very post-apocalyptic Western vibe, and I loved it. I just loved the way that this movie looked and the way that it felt. With the scenery and the settings in this film, it had a very immersive vibe to it. But now let's talk about Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart. And in this film, Charles Xavier is not doing too well. He's suffering from a mental illness where it confuses him, and sometimes when you combine that with his mutant powers, where he uses his mind, it's a disaster waiting to happen. And that whole aspect plays a very large part in this movie, and I really enjoyed that because everything's very unstable at times, and there's a few really intense situations where Wolverine is the only guy who can step in and save the day. Now, the best way I can describe Logan, this is a comic book movie for people who don't like comic book movies. Now, don't get me wrong, I love comic book movies. Can you tell? Look at all that shit back there. But more often than not, comic book movies are overproduced, they're over-budgeted, they're over-scripted, they're just a big bloated CGI mess of just random explosions and shit just happening for the sake of happening. This movie at times almost feels like an independent action movie with great character moments, but it just so happens to feature the character of Wolverine. And that's the biggest praise I can give this movie. It feels like a real movie and not just a comic book movie. And I'll be honest with you, going into this movie, that was my fear, because I almost thought it might be underwhelming and not quite give me that comic book aspect of that epicness and those berserker attacks I was looking for. But I am happy to say the Wolverine fanboy inside of me was very happy 5 minutes into this movie, because you realize they are definitely utilizing that rated R rating, and they're giving you the Wolverine we've all been waiting 17 years to see. Isn't that crazy? Hugh Jackman has been this character for 17 years. And I think with Logan, this is probably the best portrayal of the character we've seen yet. And most importantly, we get those hardcore, rated R, berserker attack scenes we've all wanted to see. That's right, 78 people get decapitated in this fucking movie with adamantium claws. I love it. From a storytelling standpoint, everything that happens in this movie with the action and the blood, the guts and the gore and the violence, it all blends together so well, and in between all of those things, you have characters, and you understand these characters, so when they're in these intense situations, you actually care about what's happening to them. And out of all the X-Men movies, I would say this movie has some of the best character moments. And there's a few very sad, dramatic scenes between Charles Xavier and Logan in this movie, and the chemistry between these two guys, it's great. Now let's talk about the little badass who does berserker attacks in the movie, and her character's name is Laura. But this little girl was awesome, she was well written, and there are scenes where she kicks a lot of ass. And it didn't feel like just a little girl dangling on wires with special effects helping her do these things. And as far as movies go, the best thing I can do to compare to her character in the movie Logan is she's almost like Hit Girl from the Kick-Ass movies. And she steals a lot of the scenes in the movie. So yeah, I really like the character of Laura in this movie. Now with all that said, I do have a few complaints with the movie. Now this movie does have a few antagonists that go up against Wolverine because Wolverine needs somebody to fight. And I thought for the most part, as far as a storytelling standpoint goes, they were sufficient, they did their job, but I also thought they were both very bland, and one of the antagonists in this film almost felt like it was just tossed in there because, hey, we need another badass for Wolverine to fight, so let's just do this. Now, does that mean it's bad? No, I really enjoyed their final showdown in the movie. I really thought it was well done and awesome to watch. But I sort of wanted something else. And one other thing I didn't necessarily love about this movie is during the third act of the movie, the big climax is happening, things are going down, the action is ramping up. I thought the score that was backing all this up wasn't very good. When it comes to musical film scores, I think they can really intensify the action that's happening up on the screen. And during the third act of this movie, where people were running around in the woods, it almost felt discombobulating. It just felt like random noises happening, and it didn't really build up the situation as much as I wanted it to. You know, you take other movies like Batman Begins or The Dark Knight, and you hear that Hans Zimmer score, and it builds up, and it escalates the sequence. And amazing scores like that almost give you little goosebumps down your arm. You guys know what I'm talking about. But during the third act of this movie, that score that they played, it just didn't really do anything for anything happening up on the screen, and I thought it almost took it down a notch. So now, here are my final flicking thoughts on Logan. First things first, I think we gotta thank Deadpool, because it took a chance, and it was one of the best rated R comic book movies that made a lot of money. Because of the success of Deadpool, Fox Studios said, wow, we can pull our heads out of our asses and actually make movies that go for it and aren't watered down. Because as far as comic book movies go, there are just some stories that need to be rated R to give the viewing audience the best possible movie they can. And once again, I love Deadpool. It's rated R, it was awesome, it was a blast to watch. But when it comes to films, movies like Logan evoke emotions out of me. They make me feel something. They make me feel sympathy or a feeling of sadness. And at other times when Wolverine's getting beat to shit and he's down on his knees and he's about to give up, that one little ounce of energy fires up inside of him, and his claws come out and he kicks everyone's ass. And I love moments like that. So movies that evoke emotion out of me are just my preference for movies. And that right there is why I think Logan is probably the best rated R comic book movie ever made. So I'm going to give Logan a solid A. This isn't a perfect movie. It has flaws. There was room for improvement. But after watching the movie, I wanted to watch it again, and very few movies do that for me. The movie Logan definitely goes for it at times, and I respect things like that. So that's my take on the movie Logan, guys. Now here's my question to you, and let me know down below, what do you guys think about the movie Logan? Or what is your favorite rated R comic book movie of all time? I just like the way new t-shirts smell. So anyway, yeah, once again, my TeePublic link is down below. Check that out, guys. And also, before I go, I wanted to give a big thanks to everyone who joined me on Patreon this month. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the support, guys. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. That way, I can see you next time.